Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Podcast with your host, Jeff Lopes. Jeff has over 2 decades experience as a serial entrepreneur, building brands like Kimura from his home basement to a multi-million-dollar global brand that has sold over 250,000 pairs of boxing gloves. Jeff's here to educate, guide, and drive you on the process of bringing your ideas and dreams to reality with the inspiring stories from some of the top business minds.
Welcome to episode number 31 of the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. Today we have a special guest, Joseph Michael. At the young age of 19, followed his dad's footsteps into a career of law enforcement. Not less than 2 years later, the entrepreneurial itch hit him, and he's never looked back. This is going to be a great podcast. Sit back and enjoy, everyone. We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. We have a special guest today, Joseph Michael. Joseph was a police officer in the past, and after a few years, his entrepreneurial juices started flowing and his career took off from there. So we're going to get to know Joseph, get to know everything about him, learn about his businesses, and see what he's doing and what he's up to now. Joseph, say hi to our audience.
How's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me, Jeff. Really appreciate it. And just super excited to chat some biz and life. Let's get into it.
That's awesome, buddy. I always start off by letting the audience get to know who you are, what you're currently doing, and then we'll just flow from there and take the conversation as it goes. So what are you up to now? Your business and wise and all that.
Beautiful, man. Yeah. So currently me and 4 other business partners, we're running a company called Conversions. And essentially what we're doing is we have a hybrid coaching program where we're teaching essentially coaches, course creators, digital service providers how to get more leads and customers, client acquisition, client conversion, and ultimately fulfilling their products and services through social media.
Now, when you're working with customers, is it a certain level of capacity? You only work with a certain level of business, or you work with beginning entrepreneurs, beginning companies? How does that work?
Yeah, generally now the people that are coming to us, they already have a business. They've been doing it for a bit, making a couple grand a month, but they can't gain the traction. They have no process or system in place to actually consistently get the customers, the clients in their business. So generally more on the beginning side, but we're also getting some people that are, they're making some good money, but they just don't have the system and they don't really have any proven processes in place. So we help them out through our coaching programs, and yeah, it's been going great, man. It's a fairly new company. We made a big transition, but everything's going great. And I'd say from beginner range to like intermediate is the specific program that we're running right now is our little audience right there.
I'm going to ask you this, and I always ask everybody because I have a different thought process on business partners. How does that work with you? And how did that all start with business partners? And is everything flowing perfectly right now? Does everybody have their own mindset to it? How does it all work? Because 5 is a lot.
It is. It's tricky. You know what I mean? There's definitely some downsides, some upsides, but ultimately the 4 guys that I'm working with now, we were all a part of, in some capacity, the last company. And then when we made that pivot, that was when this big idea was born, and we went in, essentially, 5 people, 20% each. And, it's been interesting navigating. We've also been living in the same complex building. So, it's interesting navigating like the different mindsets, the different, alpha type males just, cooped up together. So, but we've been pretty good. Everybody's got a really solid mindset around business, the vision we have for our company. And, we kind of just roll by best idea wins, no ego, you know what I mean? None of that stuff. And it's like best idea wins, whoever shoots it, and we run with it. So it's been
where'd you guys all meet? Through school, through work? Like, how did you guys all meet originally?
We all met actually through the internet, which is pretty interesting. A few years ago, we're all internet people. But yeah, it was all through the last company that we were running. So 2 of my other business partners, they started another company. It was an online education company. And they were growing that. I became part of it. I started building my business. Then one of our other guys, he started doing sales for us. And we all met through that. Ultimately grew that, to about 1.3 million in revenue. And then just unforeseen problems and just the nature of the industry kind of caused just a lot of just negativity and just pain in the ass, to be honest. So from there, that was where we all met, and then we transitioned here.
So your other business, you said it was educational. Was it educational for children? Like, what form of educational company was it?
Cool. So the company was CEO Movement. And essentially what it was is, I don't know if you've seen it, but there was a big essentially trend in the marketplace where you took a network marketing company and that was being sold on the back end. And the front end was the education platform being sold. So it was $99 a month recurring revenue. And we taught people Facebook ads, mindset, all stuff related to social media. And it was an affiliate platform as well. So there's affiliate commissions being paid out. But yeah, it was essentially the front end was the affiliate marketing package, which was $99 a month. That gave people the education. And then we obviously would want to upgrade or ascend those people that came into a higher tier package, which at the time was network marketing. And that was where it got tricky, just due to the nature of network marketing.
How long did you have that company for?
So I actually wasn't the founder of it. I was brought on to consult and help grow it. But the two business partners that did start it was about 3 years, I want to say.
So was that your first experience almost like as an entrepreneur from being a police officer?
That was my first one. That was my first experience as a police officer, about a year and a half into the job. That was when I made the transition, started that business, the affiliate marketing and the network marketing. And I did my first 6 figures doing that, half and half. I was still being a cop, which was an interesting dynamic. And then also running the business, which ultimately led me to quit with that old income from that company. So yeah, it's been a journey, you know what I mean? So
let's jump back to your prior career as an officer. Is this something that was in the family blood? Like, what drives you to be an officer to start with? You got on the force quite young. You said you were 19 when you were on the force? 21?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what got you to drive to that career and all that?
So for me, I was, when I was a bit younger, like graduating from high school and stuff like that, I was an athletic person. I love sports. I was going to play football in college. I was getting recruited. So the athleticism piece of my life was massive. But ultimately, I ended up not going away to school and playing football in college. And that was when my father, he's in law enforcement as well. He works in New York. And he just told me, he's like, listen, man, he's like, you're not sure what you want to do yet. I just want you to take some police officer tests, some law enforcement tests. It's just an opportunity to say no down the road. He never pushed it on me. But there was a day where I got the test results back at about 20 years old. And it was for the exact department in my county. And it's one of the highest paying departments in the country, like beautiful job, only working 12 days a month, pension benefits. Like it was pretty sweet. So there was just like a moment in time where I was sitting in my car. I got the test results. I'm like, I think this is what I want to do. You know what I mean? I thought about the military at some point. So kind of had that in my mind a little bit. But from that point forward, I just made a decision and then went all in. And then that began my journey as a police officer at about 21 years old. Literally made the cutoff to become a police officer by 19 days just due to my age.
And you were a police officer for how long?
Just under 4 years. So from 21 to about 24, late 24. Actually, last year, in July 9th of last year, I quit. I walked away, totally left everything on the table.
Do you miss it at all?
Yeah, man, I do. There's definitely parts of it. There's nothing like it. It's a very, very different job, which is why it was so tough for me to leave. Because, the camaraderie, the craziness, like the adrenaline rush you get when you get crazy calls, there's nothing like it. And it was just a really special job. So there's definitely parts of it missing. When I see police officers whizzing by me over here in Scottsdale, I'm like, all right, I wonder what he's going to, because I was there. So I definitely do miss parts of it.
So you're in Scottsdale now, Arizona, correct? How long have you been up there for? Did you say your dad's in New York? Were you originally from New York?
Yep, born and raised Long Island, New York. He's still up in New York. And yeah, me and my business partners moved out here January of this year. Because
how's your life in Arizona? Do you appreciate it there? Do you like it there?
Oh man, it's absolute paradise. The weather, the people, a lot of entrepreneurial hub, to say the least. We have a massive network out here already. It's like you go to the bar, just to have a drink, or you go get food, and like there's people. This guy's doing 6-7 figures here in this business. It's like very, it's the spot to be for me, and it's been an absolute blessing to build our network out here and kind of plant some roots.
So you plan to be out there for a while?
Yeah, we just signed another 12-month lease, so we'll be out here for minimum another year while we're building stage, boots on the ground in the pocket. So yeah, we'll be here for a little bit.
So you guys are all in the same building complex. Do you guys have your office in the same complex as well?
Yeah, so we actually just moved apartment complexes. We all have our own apartments, and we have our offices set up either at home, and there's massive business centers around here that we work. But over the next few months, there's some really cool office space over here that we're going to grab, an office for the company. And yeah, there's a lot of it. It's a really good vibe out here.
I'm going to step back because I have to ask you your thoughts and your feelings of there's so much craziness going on in the world with questions on officers going on. And where's your mindset with officers nowadays and what's going on and all that?
It's tough out there, man. Like, I mean, obviously now for myself, I'm like happy I'm not in that profession right now because it's a very difficult time to just do your job. Like doing your job is a problem for officers, which is a problem in itself, right? So I think we're going to start seeing a lot. I mean, even in Atlanta, there was dozens of officers that are resigning, right? And I think it's going to be across the country. You're going to see this because at some point it's going to come to where officers are like, I have a family. Is this worth it? You know what I mean? And it's a shitty situation to be in, but it's very hard to do your job right now. All eyes are on officers, and it's a tough situation, man. You got to really be careful.
And now also, I guess the recruiting process, like how many people do want to be cops nowadays with everything going on? I think that's a big valid point.
Yeah, I mean, the demand for police officers, I mean, it's not where it needs to be. I don't believe I don't think there's as many really committed people to doing it, especially in this state of the country. So as far as the hiring process, in my experience, it was pretty thorough. There's definitely still some people that slip through the cracks, and there's definitely some work that can be done on that side. As far as the training side for police officers, it's pretty limited depending on your department and the funding they have. So definitely needs to be more training. There can definitely be a little bit more screening to get those few people that slip through out. In my academy class, we had about 180 people, and there was a handful of people that's like, I don't know if this person's cut out for it. But yeah, I mean, there needs to be some change as far as, police training, number one, the hiring process, and then the constant ongoing evaluations and things like that. Because once you get on, it's like the training is very, very limited. You pretty much stop training. In my department, at least, we didn't have.
It's all like that. Even here, like I said, I got quite a few friends that are officers, and the tactical training. You got your 3-4 weeks of once a day in police academy, and then you by the time you actually get on the force, it's maybe once a year. There might be a weekend of self-defense or anything like that. So it's very, very limited, and then you're put in a situation where you have seconds to decide what to do, right? So it's a very, very hard situation, right? And there's so much going on right now, even with all the protests, right? I was talking to somebody about this right now. Like I'm totally for protest and freedom of speech and letting everybody do anything. But when everybody now, we're getting the criminals coming out and they're vandalizing and they're stealing and they're setting things on fire. Like you're taking advantage of such a sad situation, and it's just causing more stress on everybody.
Yeah. It's a bit crazy in New York too, man. I see all my friends, from police, from NYPD. It's like a war zone out there. It's
crazy. It's crazy. Some of the videos is insane. How's your dad right now dealing with all this? Have you talked to him on a regular basis?
Yeah, we chat a lot. He's actually not an actual police officer. He's a court officer. So he's essentially runs the court buildings, but he's in a really tough area. And he's seen it as well. He's getting spit on and all sorts of just absurd stuff. And he's like 54 now. And he's like, what is this? What am I doing here? It's like, these people are just their level of consciousness around a lot of things is just so low. And there's a lot of conditioning that goes into it. But ultimately, it's a shit show. You know what I mean? Out there right now.
Let's jump back into your current business. Where do you see it going? Where do you see the company going? And is this something you guys are looking at an exit strategy again with this company, or is it something you guys want to grow and build?
So currently, pretty much cash flow business, right? For the foreseen future, could have an exit strategy down the road. But right now, our goals, our trajectory right now is in the next 2 to 3 months, we'll be doing about probably say $100K a month in revenue. And ultimately, the big milestone for us that we're going to get to over the rest of this year is going to be consistently $250K a month, delivering amazing services to our clients. That's our foreseeable future goal right now.
Where do you see yourself 5 years, 10 years from now? Do you have any other business ideas that are streaming through your head right now? Do you see yourself venturing onto other companies? Obviously, you have the entrepreneurial itch inside you, right? And that's natural. And then I want to actually talk about that as well. I want to get your mindset on entrepreneurs, and just if you have that itch, just letting it go and going with it. But where do you see yourself go from here on?
So from here, man, I see this company. We have a solid team of people that are just driven. We're all very, very similar in our mindset and the vision we have for our life. So I absolutely think we're going to smash this company. We'll scale to 250K. And then from there, I'm sure the vision will change a little bit. But ultimately, I do know that all of us collectively, we're looking to get into some real estate. After the cash flow is coming in, we're in a solid place. We want to start reinvesting into properties, start getting some hard assets. But yeah, I mean, going forward from maybe the end of this year, what I personally really want to start doing is really just blowing up my personal brand. I have a nice little brand on social media, but I want to get connected with some big dogs and really blow it up, kind of become a thought leader in the space and evolve into that person over time. And yeah, I'm open to starting companies, down the road that are symbiotic to the business, and that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's going to be grow this company to a massive level. Reinvest that into assets, real estate, things like that. And then blow my personal brand up and really.
How are your partners? Are they very social media driven as well, like yourself?
Yeah, we're all pretty much similar on social media. Currently, we're not very active on social media. We all have decent personal brands. We all have over 10K followers, a nice little tribe of people following us. But ultimately, right now, we mainly use paid advertising to get clients. So we're not super active on social media right now, just because we don't really need to be. But we definitely want to build that presence, all of us, I'd say.
The brand building is such a massive part of everything nowadays, right? Once you have that social following, that social brand, it's like anything, and everything you put your name onto, it just speeds up the process by 1-2 years, right? Which is drastically important. With yourself, where do you see, like you said, right now, your goals of this vision, this company, all this stuff, you're still 20, you're 25 right now? Yeah, you're still young. Family, do you have a girlfriend now? What's the deal with you?
No girlfriend right now, man. I'm living a single life right now. It's in like startup mode right now, just building with the boys. Good family back home in New York. Solid family upbringing, nothing crazy.
Do you have any other entrepreneurs in your family?
No, I do not. I'm breaking that mold.
What was the conversation when you told your dad you're quitting law enforcement to go full-time entrepreneur?
That was an interesting one. Me and my dad are very, very close, very, very similar, very tight. And ultimately, when I became a police officer, he was, just super proud of me at a young age, like telling all his friends about it, very excited about it. So when the time came, when I started the business and I started seeing the potential, right, of the business life, I had already been reading books and stuff, which is really what sparked everything for me. And he saw, because I was at home, living at home, right, being a cop, coming home, doing 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shifts, coming home, waking up at noon, and then grinding the business, growing it. And he saw that for a year. In the beginning, he was like a little bit like, I support you, but like, I don't know, right? Because you've never done this before. But he saw and he watched firsthand. Me go from 0 to 6 figures, the checks coming in the mail, like actually, put it in the work. And at that point, when I started talking to him about actually leaving, he was very supportive. And it got to the point actually where we were sitting down one day, and I'm like, I'm thinking about leaving in 6 months' time. I was already making enough income to leave, so I could have left. And he's like, "What are you doing, dude? Rip the Band-Aid off." He's like, "Rip the Band-Aid off." He's like, "I got you. I fully support you in this." He's like, "I've seen the growth. I've seen, your mindset around just all the things that you've applied yourself to." And he's like, "There's no doubt you're going to make it to wherever you want to go. So rip the Band-Aid off, dude." And that was the moment where I said, forget 6 months. It's 2 weeks from now. I'm putting in my letter. And that was actually the spark to actually take action on leaving. So
that's pretty amazing. With yourself, where's your mindset with other entrepreneurs? Because obviously you had the itch, you had a little push by your dad, and it kind of gave you the inspiration to go on as an entrepreneur. What advice we give entrepreneurs that right now that are stuck to a 9-to-5 job? Because you got a lot of that too. You got a lot of natural entrepreneurs that have dedicated 3, 4, 5 years of university or college. They got a degree. Now they got to pay off their tuition, and they're working a 9-to-5 job, and it just becomes repetitive, and they fall into this almost this spin cycle, and nothing changes. And you're going round and round, and day by day, you wake up, you grab your coffee, you drive to work, you come home, you pay your bills, and it just all of a sudden life happens. You get married, you have kids. What advice would you give a young entrepreneur that's right now saying, you know what, I want to do it, but I don't know what to take, or I don't know what steps, or I'm fearful. What advice would you give an entrepreneur or an individual that wants to be an entrepreneur, that has that itch?
I would say for someone that's looking to get into the entrepreneurial space like myself, for me, it all started with awareness, like growing my awareness outside of the bubble that we're all put into. You know what I mean? Like outside of the norm, outside of society. So for me, it started with reading. It started with reading books that opened my mind and saw like the light of like, wow, there's a lot out there that I don't know. And ultimately,
were you, sorry, let me jump in there. Were you reading entrepreneurial books, like business books, motivational books? Like what were you getting into? So I'm a big book guy too, right?
Love reading. You know what I mean? It's so important. So the first books I actually started, I remember the first book I read that really popped my bubble was, and it's not even a book that I even like follow anymore, but it was like the thing in the moment that was the catalyst. It was this book called Millionaire Teacher. And it was this book about how this teacher, right, on a normal teacher salary, built like a multi-million-dollar stock portfolio with his salary. And that opened my mind. And then I started getting into the like real estate investing, stock market stuff. It was my initial thing. It was more of like wealth creation than starting a business. Then I started diving into Shark Tank every day. I'm taking freaking pages of notes, like on my couch as like a 20-year-old kid, just like writing down all these metrics and numbers and stuff. So that initial like awareness of like, wow, this is possible, I think is important for people to see that light at some point. But, you know, obviously it's scary, you know what I mean? For a lot of people, they've never done it before. So there is a little bit of fear. And I just think there's never a point in anybody's journey where you're actually ready. I don't think ready is an emotion. I think it's a decision. So
I love the way you said that. It's 100% true. You just you wake up, whether it's quitting drinking or quitting drug, whatever it is, it has to be that moment you say it's time. That's it. And I'm ready to do it.
Absolutely, man. So yeah, I mean, that was what happened for me. And I started a little t-shirt company to start with one of my police officers.
Okay, let's get into that. The t-shirt company? What was it called?
It was called Blue Island Apparel.
Okay.
We were making sales. Like it was pretty solid to start.
That's such a hard industry, the apparel company.
Learned that fairly quickly. Just pretty flaky. So we ended up kiboshing that. And then that was when
you were still officer when you started that, right?
Still an officer, yeah.
Yeah. So what'd you do with that? Like it was more of a lifestyle brand you were trying to build?
We were building a brand around policing in Long Island and New York. We were kind of doing like, you know, you see the blue line, like with the state, like the state.
Yeah.
So a bunch of really cool apparel. It was nice clothes. But ultimately, like I just wasn't ready for it at the moment. And my partner wasn't in the same mindset. So made a few $1,000 from it. And that was pretty much it from there. But that was like, all right, this is not working. So like, what is going to be the thing for me that's going to be the vehicle? That's kind of when I came across the opportunity. I came across an advertisement like on social media, clicked it, and then ended up like that led me to like literally where I am today, clicking on an ad. So
what ad was it? Do you remember?
It was an ad that one of my business partners now was running like 2.5, 3 years ago, you know, for that affiliate, that first company, the affiliate marketing, you know, online education company.
Yeah.
And that was where I started my first business with essentially network marketing, but it was like a hybrid model where we were selling network marketing online with an upfront offer, and then network marketing was being sold in the back end. But yeah, you know, that was the initial thing for me, seeing the vision, seeing what was possible. And, you know, when you're working a 9 to 5, like I think a lot of people need to understand that it's going to be for the first few years, 9 to 5 is your work. And then after that is you gotta put in the work with the business, you know what I mean? To get out of that position. So you're not putting in those hours and that time on the side, or you're never gonna be able to replace your income. So that's what I tell like a lot of people that I work with and coach is that, you know, goal number 1 is replace your income. You know what I mean? Get to a point where you can literally cover your expenses and walk away if you wanted to. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's one. But yeah, I mean, you got to be pulled by something. You have to have some sort of vision and belief.
Did you have an itch? Like growing up myself, I was always a hustler. Like I always, whether I was getting sports cards and trying to sell them, I was, doesn't matter what age, I was always trying to make money. And is this something, because when you jumped into the whole t-shirt thing, so it's naturally you had that itch to be an entrepreneur. You might not have realized it. Is this something you, even as an earlier, now you can sit back and look at yourself, I was 10, 12, 14 years old. Did I have that itch already and I didn't realize it?
Yeah, there were actually, I didn't connect the dots originally, but then I would talk to my dad about it. He's like, you had a lot of entrepreneurial tendencies of like wheeling and dealing, like selling things on the side. I remember when I was in high school, we would have to sell these cards, right, to get our jacket, to get our like varsity jacket, and sell these cards around town. And I actually, like one of my friends, who was a pretty good salesman, I'm like, listen, dude, I paid him. I outsourced it. I'm like, I had like a day left to sell them. I'm like, I'm not really trying to sell this right now. So I paid my friend. He went, sold all of them, and I gave him a cut. And like, that was like the first like glimpse of it for me, was like thinking in those ways. And yeah, it happened a few more times with just like getting money and like seeing where can I put it. And there's a lot of small tendencies that I did notice, lemonade stands, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there were glimpses of it for sure.
I was just talking to a past guest on this, as well as I've been through it now. So I could see the patterns that happen. And I look at my daughter that's 14 now, and like at 10 years old, she's making bracelets. I'm like, what are you doing with these? She goes, oh, I'm bringing to school. I'm selling to my friends. And I'm like, you could see all these things she's doing always. She's always like, I'm making tie-dye shirts, selling to my friends. And she's constantly trying to hustle. And you could see somebody that's got it now that I've been through it. So I could sit back and watch other entrepreneurs, and I could see pretty quickly a young person in their teens, whether they have that itch or whether they have that natural tendency. Like, I do believe you're born an entrepreneur. You can't teach somebody to be an entrepreneur. No matter how hard they want it, how bad they want it, they're going to fail if they don't naturally have it, because it's that work ethic you can't teach. I always tell even pro athletes, they're natural entrepreneurs. That drive they have to become that pro it's that natural drive inside them. You can't teach that. Either you got or you don't. So I like seeing how young entrepreneurs like yourself, because you're quite young still, they've kind of molded themselves into this position without even realizing they have, which is pretty amazing, right?
100%, man. It's funny. Me and my business partners talk about that a lot. It's just like that it factor, which like you can't like pinpoint it. Like there's so many things you can chalk it up to, but it's like that thing that someone has, it's like that, tenacity and that drive for something better. Not everybody has it, for sure.
So football was a big part of your life growing up?
Yeah. I played all sports growing up, but predominantly football was my thing. In high school,
what position were you?
I was playing wide receiver and safety. Absolutely. And I didn't play for that long, like organized football for that long. I played for my last 2 years of high school. And, I went from a small, like scrawny kid where I was a little late bloomer to not starting. And then my senior year, immediately I became captain. I won a couple awards, went to the all-county game, and then ultimately was getting recruited by colleges fairly quickly. So that was going to be a whole life path for me, but I ended up not doing that. And now,
what changed your mind with that?
When I remember, I went to the school to visit. One of my friends was playing there already. And
do you mind me asking what school that was?
It was Widener University. It was a pretty solid D3 school. And it was a great time. But for some reason, there was something in my mind that was like, it didn't like click for me. I really did love high school football, so that could have been a part of it. And I mean, it was like at the time that it was a private school, so it was super expensive. It was like $40K a semester, and I was like, I want it that bad to pay $40K a semester for collegiate sports. I'm going to be a slave for the next 4 years. So that was kind of my mindset. And then ultimately, I just said, I'm not going to do this, and I'm going to wait and let my thoughts simmer and really figure out what I actually want to do.
Do you miss it at all?
Yeah, I miss football, man. It's such a great sport. Just lining up on that field with your brothers, get ready to knock people's heads off, essentially.
It's like in Canada, we don't have the same dedication by the fan base when it comes to high school sports or even college sports in general. Here, it doesn't have the same following. Like you get a college game in the US, and it could be a Division I school. You're looking at 60,000-70,000 people in the stands. We don't get that for our professional football teams here, for God's sake. So it's a different world, right? It's that Friday Night Lights kind of ordeal, right? With your high school, was it a big popular high school? Like, did you have a huge fan base? Like, did you have tons of people coming out to the games?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like anything crazy like down in Texas or anything like that, but there was a solid fan base. All the family was out there. Everybody's, parents, grandparents, kids, the big, long bleachers, and they filled up, for the games and stuff. You had a nice little crowd there, and it was inspiring, and it gave you that, that energy and adrenaline to really just perform on the field. So it was a cool experience.
It's all these little moments. They kind of mold you. You don't realize it, and they all mold you in a way, right? Which is pretty amazing. With yourself going forward, I always ask everybody a few questions. If something were to happen to you today, how would you want to be remembered? If simple words, how would you want to be described one day?
Good question. For me, one of my biggest things, I've been learning more and more every day, is how important relationships are. Business is actually, an absolute pillar of my life, but relationships in business and in life are just more important to me. So for me, it's knowing that anybody that I come across, anybody that I meet, right, I can be a positive impact or force in their life, right? So it came to, if somebody would say something about me when I passed, it's like, wow, that guy really made a difference in my life. They shifted my mindset, my energy, was just a super charismatic person to where I wanted to be around him. I mean, it was a positive force in my life. So on the impact level, absolutely that. And also an inspiration for people to follow their dreams and their goals. And really for me, it's an impact thing. Ultimately is really just impacting as many people as I can, helping people discover their own power, raising consciousness around entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, helping them level their mindset up. Because ultimately, I believe that's one of the main forces in business, how you perceive the world and how you navigate it through your mind.
So guest speaking, I was just reading a little bio on yourself. You've done some guest speaking, right?
Yes.
How did that all come about? How did that all start? Because obviously that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs try to dive into, and they don't realize it's not the easiest thing to do. How was your first? Let's get into first. When was your first experience guest speaking?
So my first experience, so it was actually a part of that other company. There was a massive community of thousands of entrepreneurs who were building their affiliate marketing and network marketing businesses. And we would throw events. So the first one that I spoke at was an event in London, because the community and the platform was probably 50% from the UK people and then 50% from North America. So it's a very global thing. So we threw an event out in London. About 200 plus people showed up. And at that point, I was emerging as a leader and I was getting results in my business and I was very driven and focused. So I was invited to speak on stage as one of the speakers, and it was absolutely horrifying. I was always that shy kid, never was very outgoing in my childhood. I was a bit more reserved. But when I stepped into my mindset and my business, and I understood the change that needed to happen from who I was to where I need to be, I just fought through that fear. I remember sitting there in the back of the room, getting ready to be called out, and my stomach is in knots. I'm freaking out, and I went on stage, and I prepared very well. So it went well, man.
I think that's the biggest thing is especially at the beginning when you're doing it is people that don't prepare are the ones that, because the nerves get you. So you want to have it in your mindset that it's so memorized what you're going to say and how you react. So it comes out naturally because it's part of you, right? And then you start flowing and naturally going with it as you get more comfortable. But it's the number one fear for most people, right? Guest speaking. So I always ask how people feel when they first step on stage, right? It's a scary, scary thing to do.
Yeah.
So you've done how many more since then?
So I did one in London with community and platform, and then we had another one in San Diego, same community, same platform. Then another one in Barcelona, which was probably about almost 250 people in Barcelona. And then
you've flown around for this, huh? That's pretty impressive. You get to see some nice places, huh?
The last 4 years with that company in business, it was very digital nomad-esque. Traveling around wasn't like proper business, like rooted, company structure. It wasn't that, more solopreneur stuff. Yeah. But flew around to those different places. And then more recently, right when I got to Scottsdale, Arizona, I moved here in January. I was invited by some mentors of mine to speak at their event in Scottsdale, teaching other entrepreneurs, some personal branding stuff and mindset stuff as well.
So are you into the mindset stuff like life coaching and stuff? Is that something you want to eventually do?
I wouldn't say I personally want to be right now a mindset coach or anything like that, specifically one-on-one, because it's really not scalable. Yeah. But I'm big into mindset, man. I my mindset and around just thought, like the mind alone, like I've studied it hours and hours, thousands of hours of podcasts and reading and understanding how the human brain works. It's so fascinating to me. And
have you ever dived into NLP?
Yeah, I have dove into that a bit. There was a coaching program that I took a while back where we were diving into NLP and a lot of coaching techniques and strategies. And the whole
it's so interesting, huh?
very interesting, man. How
Yeah.
beliefs, thoughts, and all that stuff is very, very intriguing to me. And I love studying it because ultimately it's tied to my success. So,
Are you a big proponent for teaching sales and understanding sales as an individual?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I do believe mindset is so important, but I also believe you got to be competent in business, which has been a bigger shift lately. We're really, working the numbers, right? Managing the employees, teams, like there's that whole element to it, which I absolutely believe in as well. Marketing, sales. That's a lot of what we teach in our programs is, client acquisition, sales, right? And all that stuff. So big believer in sales and the psychology behind it. And you got to know sales. You know what I mean? If you want to make money.
I find that's one of the lost arts, right? A lot of young people, when even if you're not an entrepreneur, learning sales or learning how to comfortably sell yourself, whether you're doing an interview, whether every single day of your life, you're somewhat way selling yourself. And I think that's the lost art, is a lot of people don't appreciate that and don't understand that how more successful you could be if you become a good salesperson.
100%, man. Sales is life. Sales is everything. How'd you land your wife? How do you land your girlfriend? Right? You sold.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, that's very cool. I always ask superpowers. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Superpower. Okay, that's a good one. Superpower. Let's see. I think I'd say maybe I'd like to fly, dude. I think that'd be good. It'd be good to fly. Fly around. Just zoom around wherever I want to go. Take off, go to the store. I think that'd be pretty cool to fly.
Is there any advice you give to a young entrepreneur? And obviously you're young, so that's kind of hard, but any advice you give to somebody right now?
Yeah, I would say for younger entrepreneurs who are starting out in the journey, one of the big things for me understanding is as much as you can, having a long-term vision, and not being a victim of instant gratification in a world where everything is at your disposal, right? You want to order something, you click a button, it's at your door in 2 days from Amazon. You want food, you hit Uber Eats, it's all instant gratification, but that's not how business works, right? And so I always set the conditions for clients that we work with. This is a long-term game. And I think when people can have the ability to continue pushing through and persevering without the results they want is a massive thing to have. And that's kind of the standards and expectations that we set for our clients. It's there's going to be up and down months, from the start, understanding that, so that when it does happen, they're not oh my God, I'm not making $10,000 a month. This is not going to work. Right? So we like to set those conditions up front and let people know that there's going to be the down months. There's going to be months where you're not getting results, and the ability to actually push through regardless is absolutely essential. Because for me, that's what it was. There were months where I wasn't making what I wanted to make, and the mindset stuff great, but it wasn't translating to real life results. So having that ability to push through without the results is a big thing. And understanding it's a long game, and we got to be thinking five years down the road. So that's a little piece of advice that I would say.
I think, I loved how you said that, because with social media, with everything we have accessible to our fingertips, everybody wants instant gratification. How many likes do I get? How many followers do I get? So when they don't get the results with a business instantly, because they're so used to it on a day-to-day basis with their social platforms, it's very discouraging. Yeah. So I love that you said that you're setting goals on more of a long-term and pursuing them. I had a whole podcast when I talked about and I called it, when do you say enough's enough? So you're starting a business, you did the apparel company, and you said eventually enough's enough. When you're starting a company, where's your mindset? Or even say you have a company and you're doing well and you want to introduce a different sector or a different product into that company, and that product starts off, when do you say enough's enough? This was a bad idea.
That's a good question.
I'll tell you my mind on it after, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So, as far as there's, I guess there's two spectrums. One is just starting a business in general. And then there's actually having a business, adding different things to it. As far as starting a business, for me, with the things that I tried in the past, it didn't work out. I kind of just knew, in a sense, had this intuition of this is not part of the vision.
But you don't think a lot of entrepreneurs fall in love with their ideas?
That's another thing as well, is people are so highly attached to what they think people want, but ultimately the market's going to tell you that. You know what I mean? So
exactly. I like what you said that.
Being unattached to that, because ultimately, you're thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about your potential clients or customers. And ultimately, the market is everything, right? That's how we run our business. It's like, I don't really care how good I think this ad is going to perform or how good this is going to be. People don't want it, they don't want it. And then you have to be okay with that and willing to adapt and change based on market feedback. So that's how we run, especially with the company now. We're just listening to the market. We're like, what is the feedback coming through? Every sales call that comes through, we have notes and call notes, and we're just in the pocket learning. And we went from a program that we started initially, which was more for beginners, and 3 months later, we have an entirely different product line that's now really what the demand is saying they want, which is more helping to get customers and clients. And that came through market feedback. You know what I mean? Not necessarily what I believe is best for people. It's what they want. So
change with the market.
100%, man.
Yeah, I love that. That's something all my companies I've always adapted to is you always change with the market. Let me jump into one more thing before we head off here. With your guest speaking, obviously with the pandemic and all that, you're not doing nothing in person right now. Are you guys doing, are you focusing on more Zoom meetings? Like, what are you guys doing for that kind of stuff for your client base now?
Yeah. So
how's the business adapted to that?
Our client base is pretty much all through Zoom. It's all through Zoom trainings, and we have a core curriculum in a Kajabi platform. We kind of run a hybrid model. So we have a core curriculum, and then we also have an Inner Circle Facebook group where we provide additional coaching in the group, just due to scalability, and it's just being guardians of our time while also delivering the impact. But yeah, all is through Zoom. And that's already been how we ran the business a lot of the time, is through Zoom conferences.
Yeah.
That wasn't a big change for us. And the speaking was never like the bread and butter or any sort of massive income producing thing for us. So that wasn't a big hit for us. But yeah, it's just pretty much business as usual for us through Zoom. That's always how we've been kind of doing it.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm going to put in all our show notes, how to get a hold of Joseph, how to see his companies, how to interact with him, social media, his websites, all that stuff like that. And to get in touch for his Conversations brand and company, and see if this is something that you guys could access and use in your building of your brand and in your company as well. Thank you for coming on, brother. This has been a pleasure meeting you. I'm sure we're going to have you on and see you grow, because you're such a young entrepreneur. You have a lot ahead of you. So good luck with everything. And once again, thanks for having us, have you on our show, Jeff Knows Inc. podcast.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. Thank you for the opportunity, man. Not soon.
Very cool, buddy. Thank you. I want to thank Joseph for taking time out of his busy schedule to be a guest on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. Young entrepreneur, great, bright future. Excited to see where it all goes. If you like this podcast, tell your friends, tell your family, spread the word. We're trying to build something special here. Hit the subscribe button. Leave us a review. 5 stars would be absolutely amazing. Until next week, always move forward.